Welcome to the 5-Minute Webinar. My name is John Gilroy, and I'll be your moderator. The title for today's presentation is, Do You Make These 5 Mistakes on Apple Podcasts? Well, why am I bringing up the topic? In the last couple of years, thousands of companies have launched podcasts. Back in April, Apple announced that it has 1 million podcasts on its directory. It could be that no one's listening to your podcast because it's buried. Let's take 5 minutes today and look at 5 ways we can make your podcast discoverable on Apple. We're going to look at the image, the link, the title, ratings and reviews, and then the description. Okay, this is the easy part. Everyone knows you got to have good cover art. Normally, this is created on a desktop, so it looks great in a desktop. It must also look good on a handheld device on a phone, because phone consumption is driving podcast downloads. So make sure that image looks good on the desktop and the phone. Number 2, the website link. Many people don't even see this, they miss it. This is a link back to your show notes page. It's not a link back to your home page, it's a link back to your show notes page. The show notes page is the target for this, because the show notes page gives you the opportunity to connect to your audience. You can have images there, you can have quotes, transcripts, calls to action, great place to engage the audience. Okay, earlier we talked about the image on Apple. Now we just mentioned the image on your show notes page. They've got to be the same image. Some people forget that. Let's take an example. Let's say we have a podcast about data centers. And over at Apple, we have an image of a circuit board. And on your show notes page, you have an image of some guy in a data center. Well, if someone is, walking around thumbing their phone and hits the image and tries to go to the show notes page, they may get confused. It may not bounce. So you don't want them to bounce away from your show notes page. Number 3, the title. This can be the title of your podcast, but normally this is 3 or 4 extra words you can use to make your podcast attractive. You may want to use longer tail keywords that people would type in to find a podcast. For example, in this one, we talk occasionally about satellite innovation. So if you're on Apple and you're searching for satellite innovation, it might help you find this podcast. You see, Apple has a search algorithm too. Google is the only one in town with a search algorithm. So you want to use long-tail keywords so it'll appeal to people who are looking for that specific topic. Number 4 is ratings and reviews. This is a highly debated topic in the podcast world. Many people think it impacts the algorithm, the search algorithm in Apple. I don't think so. I think it impacts a human's desire to listen to the podcast. So make sure you have good ratings and reviews if you want someone to listen to your podcast. Number 5 is the description. I view this as about 200 words. They're free advertising. I would take and pour in every conceivable long-tail keyword I can into this section. I've gotten in heated battles with lawyers and marketing people, what words to include, what words not to include. For example, Constellations Podcast, in that area of the world, there's something called HTS, high throughput satellite. So if that's included in the description and someone searches for HTS, better chance of finding your podcast. Let's talk about your data center podcast. Well, a lot of people are interested in cooling data centers. If you have cooling data centers in there, or cybersecurity, or resilience, or backup power for data centers, it might attract people to your podcast. It's that simple. Okay, now all of these thoughts are very, very simple, and you're thinking, "Oh, this is common. Everyone knows how to do this. This is common sense." No, it's not. This is a company with 1,700 people, got a podcast. It's got no description. This is a company, $10 billion company, no description. Okay, let's review. Image got to look at your desktop and the phone. Links got to go back to your show notes page. Same image on your show notes page as Apple. Put a few keywords into your title. Get ratings and reviews to make people want to listen. And use every word you can in the description. It's a free opportunity to attract people to your podcast. My name is John Gilroy, and I'm the managing partner at the Oakmont Group. Come on down to my website if you want to read articles about podcast promotion. We also offer free podcast evaluation. The next time you see a microphone, go forth and podcast.